was a better person than I knew I was.
Hey folks, let's spend some time with some friends up north. I'm Ben Cominos from WHBY in Appleton. Joining us from WCPT in Chicago is Patti Vasquez, and from the Minocqua Brewing Company, here's Kirk Bangstad. We've got the usual suspects from our Substack page with us, as well as a special guest or two. Wherever you are, welcome, you're up north.
Hello, everyone. This is Kirk Bangstad with the Up North podcast. We have a wild ride today. Ben Cominos lost his voice on WHBY in Appleton, so Amy, our fearless producer, is going to be pinch hitting for Ben today. Patti Vasquez we got her video on vacation and her audio in Chicago. Patti, talk to me. Let's make sure that we can hear you.
I can't.
Oh, it works. Oh, she can't hear us. Great. Well, last but not least, we have Senator Chris Larson, who may be the only functional guest we have this evening. So
that's it. I finally cleared a bar today.
Wow.
Oh, we got you, Patti?
No.
She just hit mute. That was good.
Patti, we don't have you. Okay, we'll don't worry.
So I'm on 2.
Oh,
so
got it.
One should be unmuted hot. Yeah, so
okay. So Patty's going to figure out her audio, but I'm going to lead us in. We have a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to talk all about legacy media versus the media of today, independent media, which is basically giving us all of the truth that we all need in these treacherous times in America. The reason that I wanted to talk about this subject today was the reason we want to talk about this subject today was because this is a good thing. Minocqua Brewing Company, we reached our goal of $150,000 raised to perpetuate this new Amazon for progressives that we built with 90 progressive companies selling about 5,000 products. And we hit this goal because I went out. I'll just tell you the story. I went to Mother Jones, which is a legacy progressive magazine in San Francisco. And then I went to the Progressive Voices Network, which is Stephanie Miller, Tom Hartman, John Fugelsang, which are, folks on like serious media. And I asked them to help raise money because their audiences overlap with my audiences. And ultimately, all of the help that they gave us raised very little money. And the help that I got from influencers like comedian Steve Hofstetter, the woke ginger, who's a huge guy on Instagram, Kazim Rashid, who's a progressive, really smart progressive guy in Naperville, Illinois. And these guys are all on Substack. And they actually helped raise this money. So what it realized to me was there is an advertising problem in legacy media, and that people are abandoning it, and that progressives are abandoning it. Radio, and they're going to Substack and they're going digital. And I was like, oh my gosh, like everybody else might know it already, but from an advertising perspective, I'd never thought about it before. So I'm like, this is where media is going, because if advertising matters, which it does hugely, that's how all of media survives, and we can't raise money anymore on these legacy areas, that's a thing. So that's why I'm happy that we raised our goal, but it made me really start thinking deeply about where we are from a media perspective. So what I want to do with this show, and we have 4 segments, is I want to bring everybody up to speed, because we've been through a lot in the last 10 years, and media has let us down over and over and over again. And I kind of would want to remind everybody about the history of when we stopped kind of believing that legacy, that corporate media was the truth. Because it happened, I'm sure everybody that's listening right now, it happened to you at some point. You're like, wait a second, this is not Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather anymore. This doesn't make any sense to me, and it's not truthful. So I wanted to talk about that. Then I want to talk about what happened in the last year in the second segment, because that's when we really lost our most of our trusted media in 2025. Then I want to talk about the muckrakers of 100 years ago and what's happening now, and like this muckraker 2.0. And then I want to talk about where we're going in the future. So without further ado, Patti, are you back yet, or do I need to have Amy talk about what are some of the, remind us of some of these ratings issues that led corporate media down the wrong path?
Can you? Oh, hi everybody.
Hey, we're on.
Traveling a little bit from our end with tech, so thank you very much for your patience. Are you getting an echo or no?
No,
we're great.
So one of the things that I struggled with in 2016 was how quickly Trump was able to overtake the entire field of candidates. Right, because there were people who were betting. There were like professors, there were political strategists who were like, he's not going to make it past the first debate. But it was spectacle, and everyone loved what it did for ratings. And I know that we've talked about this before. I think it was Les Moonves who said he might be terrible for the country, but he's good for ratings. And that's what it's always come down to, is what can he do for our wallets? And we see that culminating with the billionaires basically hijacking our elections. And you're right. Legacy media let us down in 2016. They normalized him. It's called earned media, which I don't think a lot of people have heard before, which is basically just by his pure existence, he was getting coverage rather than, maybe you pay for advertising or you come up with this paper. It was basically just him as spectacle, as a circus sideshow. And that's that really was what led to his election, was how much money people could make off of putting him on the news.
Okay, so Amy, you and I have talked about this a lot, and you helped me produce the show today. So you looked up a lot of this stuff. So you really are the expert on all the thoughts we're going to have today. But I know I've been through it, and Senator Larson has talked to the media a lot. There is this nagging journalistic need to be fair, even when being fair means giving airtime to lies. Because sometimes there's the truth in a lie, but if you're a journalist, sometimes you feel the need to actually air both sides of the story. Can you talk to us about both sidism over the last 10 years that kind of made us distrust corporate media?
I absolutely cannot, but I will just wing it. So like when you talk about that, the first example that I'm going to think of course, is about her emails, right? That was huge. Everyone talked about her emails and how she was a terrible candidate because of that. Like that was her character flaw outside of being a white woman, or just being a woman, right? I mean, we have to be real about that. But I think that is significant. I think it played a significant part in it because Trump has a million character flaws, right? But nobody is talking about those character flaws. It carried no weight compared to those emails. And I'm not a big fan of Clinton, but to be fair, that was the reality of it. I think another one is if you talk about Biden, right? The argument against Biden, even the first time, right, was that he was too old, right? But we look at Senator Sanders, and yes, we're very, I would argue that most of us probably here are very aligned with his policies and what he hopes to implement, right? Pretty close, if not the same age, but it's interesting to me.
And they never mention anything about Trump being old, and yet,
right,
the guy has obviously got dementia and can't even get through a press conference without making America sound crazy.
Right.
Okay, Chris. So I want to bring it back a little bit more towards local news. I just today I saw your live feed. You were leaving the Capitol and not happy because you were not able to even introduce a bill to put face coverings on ICE agents or all law enforcement. The Republicans cut your mic off. They didn't allow you, to even get a bill on the floor. It's all playing politics. And I seriously doubt the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel is going to write anything about that. Even though I think it's one of the most important things in this state is to keep ICE at bay. Yeah. So talk to me about what is your thoughts on why we can't get local media, state and local media. What has happened to them because they are no longer the fourth estate in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is if I feel like I may get some stickers made that just say capitalism broke this. And you can slap it on so many different things. And one of them you could put on is media. And part of it is that they were expected to be able to produce some type of a profit, to be able to gather clicks and gather attention instead of just reporting the news. News has always been a revenue losing venture, but because it's a public good. But it was part of a larger ecosystem that was supposed to produce trust, right? Like you come in for the news, and then there's your classified ads, and then there's other things for sale and other things that are attached to it. But there was certain journalistic integrity, like that has gone down to basically nothing. Like today in the Senate, we did our press conference before, and we had 5 cameras there. And then when we were on the floor, there's a spot where they always are. There's nobody. And so nobody was really covering what we were doing in the chamber. And even Wisconsin Eye is on the verge of being smothered out. So trying to find out what's happening in government, it's already difficult because the media has drawn itself away. And now it's expected for everybody to try and figure that stuff out on its own, on their own, while like, in the meantime, billionaires have bought up social media and are slowly but surely tilting the algorithm against us. So we've seen local news deserts grow across the state. This has been a problem for some time. So people are not covering local government. We had when I was a local official, we had one guy who was covering the county board, and then that was the same person covering the Milwaukee Common Council. And then now that person is covering basically all of Milwaukee government, including the school board. And the person rotates out every couple of years because they get to a salary level where they can't be afforded, just when they're starting to figure this stuff out. So that's broken it down. You add to that, of course, the right-wing ecosystem where they've made this a conscious choice of investing in the actual news reporting, where you have right-wing media that shows up to try and add their tilt to things. And they do cover stuff. They do have their videos. And I won't boost their names, but they're out there doing their thing at the local level. And on the larger level, right, you have Sinclair, which echoes the same thing over and over and over, whether it's true or not. And they tilt things in a rightward direction. All of these different stations as a archipelago of different stations that all reporting the same thing, without ever touching the local news or what's going on.
And in order to keep this station going, the largest progressive radio station in the country, to your point, there are 1,500 conservative talk stations, 700 religious conservative stations on top of that. And we are the largest. There's less than 100 progressive stations in the country. So in order to keep the lights on, I better go to a break. We'll continue the Up North podcast in just a moment on WCPT 820 AM, KKNW 1150 in Seattle, and KTNF AM 950 in Minneapolis. More after this.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of progressive beer. The Monaco Brewing Company sells progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy progressive beer, go to MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC Hop Water. 0 alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC Hop Water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.monacobrewingcompany.com. That's thc.monacobrewingcompany.com. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Monaco Brewing Company, who sells progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get progressive beer delivered to your door every month, go to MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. The Monaco Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MonacoMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MonacoMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth. Okay, everyone, we are back to the Up North podcast. Patti is back with WCPT 820 Chicago. Senator Larson's in Milwaukee, and Amy is in Milwaukee, and Ben is going to get his voice back for the next time we are online. Poor Ben, talk show host without a voice. Okay, so in this segment, I wanted to talk about last year. When Trump got elected, we already were losing our faith in corporate media because of what we talked about in the last segment. They were going for ratings instead of substance. They were validating crazy things that Trump was saying because they felt the need to pretend they were trying to balance both sides, even though one side was nuts. And they also ran with rabid stories to get like Biden being too old versus Trump not being too old, Hillary's emails, etc. But it went on hyperdrive last year when, a couple things happened. Well, first of all, if you remember yesterday, yesterday was a pure example. So Colbert had James Tallarico on his show, and all of a sudden CBS, which has now become state-run media because they hired this conservative person, Barry Weiss, who is certainly not, she doesn't have enough experience to run a national news syndicate after only being, kind of a reporter at the New York Times who was fired and then started the Free Press, which was a very right-wing kind of independent media station. And now she's in charge of one of the most venerable news organizations in the country, CBS News, which everyone's leaving in droves because of that. But they preempted, they wouldn't allow Colbert to interview progressive Texas Senate candidate James Tallarico. The reason was they were obeying a FCC rule that said even during talk shows, we needed to give candidates equal time, which wasn't even a rule yet, and it's all a lie. It's all a lie. So that's CBS's issue. Amy, talk about some of the other instances in the last year when we've seen kind of a complete capitulation by network news, corporate news.
Did you mean Amy?
Yeah, I meant Amy.
You just called me out. Oh, this is great. Okay. So, oh, no.
I got it. So
Kimmel, that's the only thing I can think of is Kimmel. But like.
So Kimmel, Kimmel got canceled. Colbert got canceled. We've got, MSNBC went to MS Now because they were kind of defunded. I think CBS, NBC, ABC, and then everybody left 60 Minutes. Patty, what else is going on with newspapers?
Well, I mean, with the Washington Post and the ways in which, Bezos, we think about how he just decimated the newsroom recently, but he had already made it clear that he didn't want journalists doing their job. Basically, he said, if it's anything political, we don't want to talk about policy, we don't want to do those things. And when it came to announcing an endorsement, right? I mean, traditionally people do turn to newspapers for people look to the Tribune. It carries weight with folks. I think that it should carry less and less weight considering what Bezos did during the Kamala Harris and the Trump campaign, when basically the editorial board was intending, I believe, to endorse Harris. When he dismantled the newsroom a couple weeks ago, what I came across? I found out that he spent less on buying the Wall Street. I'm sorry, what did he buy? Now I'm losing my track of my
Washington Post.
Thank you so much. When he bought the Washington Post, he spent less on the entire newspaper than he did on a yacht. Like, he spent $250 million to buy the Washington Post, put his thumb on the balance of our independent journalism, and then decimated the newsrooms. There were people who were still working in other parts of the world who were stranded there because he dismantled the newsroom. And this is what the oligarchy wants to do. They want to control what we hear, what we read, what we understand, just the general information that's out there.
Yeah, he fired people and then didn't give them any money to fly home.
Yep.
That's how bad it was. So we got the network news are kind of falling apart. Our one of the Washington Post which is tied with the New York Times, in my opinion, of being like the standard news organization that we all look to for truth in America. The New York Times is I think is still lurching right. I mean, they were part and parcel of killing the Biden presidency. So I have less faith in even the New York Times anymore. But at least they're the only ones standing at a national level right now in America. Chris, we're talking about newspapers and television news, but what about all the rest of the platforms that we are all on in America? That's very scary too.
Yeah, I mean, look, on the newspaper front too. Even in Milwaukee, I still get my newspaper printed. Part of it is I believe in the institution and want to support them, even if they're not always the fairest. But even last, I think it was 2 years ago, that they actually switched their printing, so they print the newspaper a day early, which is just kind of like jaw dropping. That's printed in Illinois and then shipped over the border. And so you get it. And knowing that, you're literally reading yesterday's news. So their timeliness is very much delayed. And then add to it, like, well, what can you kind of cover in an untimely way? And it's usually older things. And they don't like to offend folks. The people who are reading newspapers are a bit older. So they tend to frame these things that are certain as questions, right? Instead of actually stating the actual fact. And that, that I don't know if we have time in this segment to go into the other media and how that has tilted. But obviously that's a huge problem. Do we have time to talk about how social media has tilted?
We got about 3 minutes. Go for it, Chris.
Go for it.
Okay. So I think it's an important thing because it is creating an ecosystem around people who expect things to be fair. So, I was one of the Facebook generation that was on there when you had to have a .edu, kind of aging myself there. But you have like this expectation that what you put in when you're seeing people's feeds, it's not tilted any one way. That has changed, right? Under Zuckerberg, where they have tilted the ecosystem so you don't even notice, but you're in a right-wing ecosystem. It's more obvious with Twitter, and it's becoming more obvious with TikTok. So it is wildly concerning, but luckily the generation that's coming up is skeptical of all power. So not to leave it on a sour note that all hope is lost as they're feeding this. They have gotten sloppy in the messages they try to convey. So even though they have all these things tilting, it's almost like viewing AI slop in what they're trying to churn out, whether people have a realization that this is pretty tilted against reality, much less against a fair system.
And I can't imagine that Kid Rock and RFK Jr. working out like weird bro bromance helps anything. I love their instincts to put that up on social media.
Yeah,
With
that's
the
that's
full
totally it. That's totally getting the hip kids, you know? It's two dudes working out in jeans. Oh man. They got the res.
The just the one place that I trust is direct email and this platform Substack, which we have moved everything onto because all of you guys write on that platform and you speak your truth and we get it straight to folks, and we don't have to depend on some overlord board telling us what we can and cannot do. Patti, take us out to the commercial and we'll come back and talk about how we can fix all this stuff.
And to all that, just like here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 Seattle, and KTNF AM 950 will continue the Up North podcast with Senator Chris Larson, Amy Kirk, and I'm your host here back in Chicago. More in a moment.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to minocquamarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to minocquamarketplace.com and typing in promo code UPNORTH. That's minocquamarketplace.com, promo code UPNORTH. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at minocquamarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to minocquamarketplace.com and typing in promo code UPNORTH. That's minocquamarketplace.com, promo code UPNORTH. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC hop water. Zero alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC hop water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. That's thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. The Minocqua Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the minocquamarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's minocquamarketplace.com and use the promo code UPNORTH. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to minocquamarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to minocquamarketplace.com and typing in promo code UPNORTH. That's minocquamarketplace.com, promo code UPNORTH.
Just a moment with our fearless leader, Kirk, taking it away.
Hey. Thank you, Patti. So we have talked about how much of America has kind of lost our trust and our faith in corporate legacy media, that being CBS, that being the Washington Post, even MSNBC is less. The towering Rachel Maddow still speaks the truth, but her voice is diminished because of a diminished network. We've also, and honestly, I'm getting my news these days from Substack and from a lot of these folks who are kind of truth tellers who have come out of the woodwork because, like Chris said earlier, telling the truth and spreading news is a public good. And so it's kind of a calling first and foremost. Unfortunately, a lot of us would like to make more money doing it, but it's not a money-making thing. I mean, Patti started doing this radio show not because she wanted to be a millionaire, is because she wants to, move the needle. like
Yeah.
we all want to do. We all want to move the needle because we have our own vision of how we want the world to be, and we want to convince others. So other folks have done this in a way bigger way than we have here at the Monaco Brewing Company times, and it's folks like Heather Cox Richardson. It's Brian. What's his name?
Tyler Cohen.
Brian Cohen. Kazim Rashid is a great new friend of mine. This guy is like on the air every day. Chris Armitage is basically like one step ahead of me in every single thing he writes in terms of what we have to do to beat Trump. Amanda Nelson has been on our show a bunch of times with Amanda's Mild Takes. What a smart person.
Yeah.
And these folks are actually giving me the news, and I feel like they're giving so many everyone else the news. And it's unfortunate because just a take is not necessarily the news. We still need to have people on the ground who are witnessing things happening, and then they report it. And then there's a layer above that that's opinion, and that's what we're doing right now. And so we still need to figure out how to fund basic journalism because, we're not doing that. We're just taking the journalism and trying to spin it in a way that convinces people, to help us make the world a better place. But everything that we're doing right now actually was done 100 years ago in the first Gilded Age. We are in the second Gilded Age, and the second Gilded Age means that most of the power in America is held by a few billionaires, oligarchs, and this is the second time we've been in this situation in America. The first was similarly right around the turn of the century when we had, instead of Bezos, Zuckerberg, Thiel, and Musk, we had Carnegie, Vanderbilt, J.P. Morgan, and all the folks that had monopolies on everything that we need, from rail to banking to steel to meat production. And they also owned all the newspapers. So what was happening 100 years ago was yellow journalism, which nobody in America could trust what they were reading, and they knew it because we're not dumb. And so 100 years later, we're in the same place. We can't trust what we're hearing from our paid news sources or our big ones. So other folks are coming. So Chris, who were the original? And these folks were called muckrakers. The Heather Cox Richardson 100 years ago was called a muckraker. Chris, you know a little bit about muckrakers. Who were these folks?
So these are, I went back, I harkened back to when I was in 7th grade, and my social studies teacher was one of my favorites, right? Like, we all had our favorite teachers, and he literally was like, you kids ever go down to a pond and just stick a stick in the mud and stir it up and see what comes up? Because we were like, what's a muckraker? And he's like, that's what a muckraker does. And so they take the bottom, they take it and they swirl it up when people don't want it to, so people can see all the muck that's there. But they didn't just do it for anybody. They did it for the people who were getting screwed over by the big guys. And they did this in the form of exposing child labor. They did this in the form of Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, pointing out the meat market and the horrid conditions of what passed in terms of the meat production in our company or in our country, right? They did this in terms of McClure's publishing these articles to make sure people knew what was going on. And they did this for a period of 30 years leading into what that was part of the progressive era. And it worked hand in hand with good government. We're up with us here in Wisconsin with Fighting Bob LaFollette, the patron saint of the progressive movement in the state. He's got his bust on the second floor of the Capitol. I have his portrait up in my office, who were speaking directly to the people about exactly what was going on. And people, similarly to where we are now, people look at the authority with great skepticism. And when you show them the unvarnished truth, when you dig up that muck, people recognize it for what it is. Now, the challenge is, back then, shame was a powerful tool. And so when they're used to the muck and people are used to it under Trump, it doesn't seem to be doing that much, but it is. And just to go back to the point when you first started, we stopped the Senate session today in its tracks when I brought up a bill all of the senators had to vote on unmasking law enforcement in the state of Wisconsin. And I attached it to what's going on in Minnesota, attached it to what's going on, and said, I think we can all agree that if law and order is supposed to happen, those who are enforcing the law will be held to account. Can we all agree on that? A number of Republicans came over to me and like, what is this you're talking about? I couldn't tell if they were playing dumb or were actually in the role, but they claim to not to know how ICE is recruiting white supremacists, how they are using these memes as a currency to be able to recruit while downgrading the training levels. And this was a law enforcement officer who was now a senator talking to me, and you could see in his eyes that this wasn't believable to him, but it was enough that all of them had to suddenly answer for what their party was doing overall, and that was enough. Just raking that muck a little bit was enough for them to shut down the entire debate and shut down the conversation for the rest of the day and extinguish all bills and send us home. So sometimes it doesn't feel like it's working, but when you hit them right in the face with this stuff, it sure can. And over the course of time, the public sure as heck gets it. The people who are paying attention, when they see and hear what's happening in Minneapolis directly, the muckrakers right now are the people who have cell phones and whistles and are reporting it directly out.
Yeah.
We need the big ones. We need what we're doing for sure, but everybody is doing this in their own way and putting themselves on the line.
Okay, Patti. So, we're talking about us right now. We're talking about what we're doing and what we want to do more of in the future.
Yeah.
How do modern day muckrakers make a living, and how do they get the word out, and how can we protect what they're doing and actually, make it something that can exist in the future?
Well, and I think, to the senator's point that it's everybody with a phone now, right? Because, I think it's developing an audience for those of us who are out there. First of all, be reliable. I mean, there were people a couple of weeks ago on our Substack, Monaco Brewing Company Substack publication. They were asking for my sources, and I was ready because I do want to make sure that I have the receipts, that I can back things up. And here's the thing, I'm willing to walk people through it. I mean, I don't want to do that thousands of people at a time, but I hope there are thousands of people. We're doing really well with our Substack following, and I think a lot of creators are. What I notice is how quickly, if someone trusts a source, like for whatever reason, because they've been honest to them, they're authentic, or if they just, fit that into that sort of vacuum of information. A few weeks ago, there were kids that walked out of a school in Texas. There were protests all over the country. But this guy rolled up, jumped out of his pickup truck, and started a fight with these kids. And the kids defended each other. But the conservatives, MAGA, was out there with that video first saying that the kids turned on a teacher, that they beat the crap out of him, and that story took off faster than the truth. Because what's that old saying? A lie will go around the world before the truth puts its shoes on. I think is that Mark Twain? I can never remember.
Sounds like it.
Paraphrased, yeah, right on.
Yeah, I'm sure I paraphrase it, but that's the problem. And the more of us out there telling the truth, I think, to the senator's point, I think that does cut through the noise. It does take, and it's tedious to like just one person at a time, but then you have to start cracking through that veneer of their I guess it's just their sheer, it's not even boldness. It's like their inability to want to even tell the truth, but they say it so loudly and so proudly, it seems like it's the truth. So we got to cut through all that.
So the way we can sustain that is, oh my gosh, the way we can
sponsors is getting sponsors.
No, I'm not gonna ask for that at the moment. But the function is that independent media is actually becoming independent because we have all these folks who are who subscribe to individual people. Unfortunately. Actually, my mom subscribed to way too many magazines when I was growing up. We had magazines coming in everywhere. So we probably are, and we were middle class. So, I can imagine a lot of people are subscribing to us. They're subscribing to Heather Cox Richardson. They're subscribing to Midas Touch. They're subscribing to The Bulwark. They might spend a couple $100, maybe a year on different subscriptions. And that's good. It would be nice if we all had the same set of information and the same organization to be able to get the news. But without that, people are kind of being able to choose, and individuals being able to make their own living, with enough subscribers keeps them honest. They don't have an editorial guy saying hey Colbert, you can't invite Tellerico on because we're going to get canceled by the FCC if that happens. So that is a positive thing. But what that also means is that radio and TV, they are depending on advertising. And we're getting back to what I was saying right in the beginning of the show. They depend on advertising. We depend on straight subscribers.
Yep.
And that is winning right now because individual folks are able to have a huge audience, whereas that wasn't the case before. So at the end, in the next segment, we're going to talk about how even progressive radio, sorry, Patti, who depend on advertising is a different world right now than our world. And one reaches an older audience, the other reaches a younger audience. We got to figure out a way to work together.
Absolutely. It's the Up North podcast with Kirk Bangstad, Amy Thomas, Senator Chris Larson. I'm your host, Patti Vasquez, here in Chicago on WCPT. And of course, we're on KK and W1150 in Seattle and KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul. More after this. We'll continue our conversation when we come back in just a moment.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of progressive beer. The Monaco Brewing Company sells progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy progressive beer, go to MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Monaco Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Monaco Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MonacoMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MonacoMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MonacoMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Monaco Brewing Company, who sells progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get progressive beer delivered to your door every month, go to MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Monaco Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MonacoMarketplace.com and go to Apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MonacoMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MonacoMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Up North podcast. We have Patti Vasquez from WCP Tweed joining us, Senator Chris Larson from Milwaukee, Amy from Milwaukee, and we are continuing our conversation about where do we go from here with truth-telling and the media in America, because we so desperately need everyone to be hearing the same truth, as opposed to living in silos and making decisions about who you vote for based on potential lies. So, Patti, my first question is, we've lost corporate journalism or corporate media. Is kind of, it's crumbled in front of us. We have progressive radio, which you're straddling both lines. You're in progressive radio, but you're here on Substack with us. Mm-hmm. You're making your own videos. What is the problem? I mean, how are the audience striated right now? And do we work together, or do we just build up a new system? What do you think?
Look, first of all, I will say I know people are looking for like-minded folks or a different source, right? I know that they're looking because we have grown our Facebook page by just 10,000 people in 1 month because people are looking for, I know it's been crazy. And I'm so grateful for everyone who supported us. I know that that's also turning into people then listening to radio. You need to sort of like feed each other, right? Like I do a video, tune in for more of the story later. And the same thing here, talk about the Instagram, the Facebook post. But that's just about building my own audience. I think that we need to also build these communities, but I know that they are looking for it. I think that, you're right. I think it's having those email lists. It's building that trust, that relationship. I think it's, and also, when we were talking about radio dying, and young folks that older folks listen to the radio, look, people are looking for real experiences. There's so much AI out there. I think that that's also starting to have an impact, that people want those genuine experiences. And I think radio, the online content, the writing, I think there's an entire universe we're building there and creating a community.
Amy, I want to ask you the same question. You've been through this journey with me as kind of the producer for the Monaco Brewing Company Times. I mean, you wrangle Chris to get his stuff done before Saturday.
I try.
Do we, and we thought a lot about this in the last few days when we put the show together. Do you think a new system has to come out of the ashes in America for people to trust again? Or do we need to kind of just blend the old ways with the new ways?
I think we need a new system. I think people are looking for a new system, right? My parents don't watch the news, and we're speaking of an older generation. I don't watch the news, but I think what the problem is like I removed TikTok. So, and maybe this is a terrible thing, but I was getting a lot of the updates about what's happening around the country, especially with ICE and protests and things like that from TikTok. Without TikTok, now I'm getting it from like Instagram Reels. But I don't know who is making that content. I don't, like you had said, Chris, about AI, like, is this real? Who are these people? If we had a centralized place where everyone was, working together to build out like this truthful information, I think people would yearn for it. People would run to it.
Chris, I'm going to ask you on the negative side of this. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Amy. This is a perfect segue for Chris being here, but I mean, we need Britain's got it, like state-funded media that has, it's like the Fed, it's like they are an independent agency, but there's, and seemingly they're quite independent because most presidents, Democrats or Republicans, always hate the Fed chairman because the Fed chairman doesn't lower interest rates to juice up the economy fast enough to keep a president happy in order to get reelected. So somehow or another, we've got an independent banking world. We should be able to have an independent journalism sponsored, situation where we can trust what we're hearing. State-sponsored media sounds very, very Nazism, so I don't even want to say that. But Chris, how do you think this could work going in the future? Also, I want to ask you, you've seen Trump try to squash everything like public radio.
Right. PBS.
Do you think he might, what do you hope to see come out of the ashes? And then what do you think Trump might do to those?
Yeah. I mean, look, we do have state-sponsored media. We have had it for a while. It's called Fox News, where they are just pumping out whatever the administration wants, unfiltered, right? And people understand how crooked that is for the most part, but it does appeal to the reptilian part of the brain for some people. Like, what is the anger induced? So it does attract a certain audience. Look, I don't know if we're going to get to that ideal. I am with you on I like to have that mapped out utopian state where it would be like, how would we have independent journalists that are separate from a government entity, but reporting on the truth and what is out there? And I don't know if we're going to be able to get to that. It's, we can have a few beers and try to map out how that would work. But I think in the meantime, we are in a situation where we are in a insurgency type of reporting out the truth, which is the best thing that we can do right now is support those institutions that are reporting the truth, that are standing up for themselves against this regime, especially when they are pushing back, when other people are folding, whether that be, CBS or whether that be the talk shows, or whether that be even local press. But if they're doing the right thing, we need to be doing what we can to support them. And I think that is essential to make sure that we do get out of this and can start building that utopian version of things. They can't squash, like they're threatening licenses, and the Trump administration is trying to sue everybody. I heard that he was trying to sue, what was it? Trevor Noah for his joke about trying to pursue Greenland because Epstein Island was no longer available. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't have heard that otherwise. So I'm really glad that he dropped that one out there. But they're going to try to sue their way out of this. What they can't do is try to go after all of the independent newsletters that are out there, the decentralized podcasts, creator-funded journalism, and those folks that are posting across borders, almost like the American radio or free what is it called? The free where America was broadcasting in post-Soviet countries. To try and make sure that there was a Western tilt.
Radio Free America or something like that.
That's it.
They shut that down because USAID dollars was keeping that going, and it was trying to teach people who were in undemocratic countries what democratic countries might look like. It was kind of like showing them the truth from the other side. And they shut that down. They defunded it. Trump defunded public radio. I just talked to Ojibwe, WOJB today in Hayward, Wisconsin. We're going to they lost 42% of their funding. And this is the greatest story you've ever heard. He went on the New York Times. He went on, different like MSNBC, and because it's one of the smaller public radio stations like in the country. People felt so sorry for the guy that donations started flooding in. So they've actually have a higher operating budget now than they did before they lost their federal funding. But he's like, people are going to get tired of that real quick. This is just a one-time thing. And so we're talking about, supporting public radio up in northern Wisconsin because it's obviously the Monaco Brewing Company. But that's the grants that have been given, federal grants to allow radio stations to be independent-ish. They depend on grants, but they can kind of do what they want. We had that, and Britain has grants that they just give a lot more to communications organizations and the arts, as a government, but they don't put any restrictions on that. So that's that's one way that Trump has been able to kind of kill free speech a little bit. But
it will, I will say that yes, absolutely, we should and can do that once we get back into power. But in the meantime, I was going to say that it seems that those who are upholding democracy now in other parts of the world may have to do that for America to make sure that there is an unvarnished look of what's going on. And as we are in this insurgency of truth, of trying to get the truth to other people, one of the things that really, really matters is people to have their own ecosystem that they trust. And part of that is being patient with your friends, be patient with your family, and try to puncture their ecosystem. And trying to, we have to break that old rule, which should never have been a rule, which is not to talk politics with your friends and family, because politics, by definition, is those things that are not settled in society, and where there is it's on a fulcrum where it's trying to go back and forth. And so those things should be talked about. Otherwise, if you're not talking about it, the things that people don't want to talk about just happen. So going out, touching grass, getting away from social media for a bit is so important to actually having conversations with people. Otherwise, everyone has their own cocoon that they have created. And if you may be that one person to actually get through. So we have to learn how to talk to people again, Kirk. We have to learn how to talk to people.
I hear you.
Also want to put a plug in for Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. Someone just texted that in, by the way.
Oh, that's great.
As a good news source.
Always been good. Always
so
been great.
my axe to grind was with the reason I started this show was I was like, man, those guys on Sirius have got to get it together because I love them. I love Hartman, Miller, and Fugelsang, but they're not where they need to be in terms of ad revenue probably, and they're not moving over to this new place. And so, I mean, that's the solution, is that we have to get platforms that folks want to subscribe to, and we got to get away from advertising.
Which is why I'm so glad you've been supporting WCPT and the Driving Home Patti Vasquez show. Thank you, Senator Chris Larson, Kirk Bangstad, Amy Thomas. That's the Up North podcast. We'll be back next week, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you, Matt.
Hey.
Bye.
Thanks, Patti.
Let me die.